Good morning, friends, and welcome back to Julia at Home. Recently, some of you have asked, and I'm sure many more of you are wondering, with 4 kids between the ages of 2 and 10, and a lot of different Montessori-based and Charlotte Mason-inspired subjects, how do I fit it all in? And that is a really good question. The answer is routine. So today I'm going to be sharing with you my plan for our routine this year. A couple quick notes. I like to use the term routine or sometimes rhythm instead of schedule, and that's because schedule just feels really rigid to me and it kind of stresses me out. I do have some times during the day that are more touch points. I'm not saying, oh, it's this time so we have to do this, but it's kind of for me to know we should be moving on to this at this time. But it's really like a guideline to get us through the day and to help me figure out how to fit in all these subjects. And then I did also just want to mention that routines will be different for every family, and they actually even change for us every year. They're a little bit different. During some seasons of life, they're drastically different. So I like to look at other people's routines as inspiration, and hopefully that's what this can be for you. And if you get inspired by any ideas, you can incorporate them into a routine that works for you and your family. So for our routine, there's lots of moving parts. So I'm going to do my best to explain to you and show you what I'm thinking for this. But I have 2 older kids that are in 5th and 3rd grade this year, and 2 younger kids that are doing, the 4-year-old is doing pre-K, and then I have a 2-year-old doing toddler school with us. So they're kind of in 2 sets. So sometimes we're together, but most often the 2 sets kind of are doing their own thing. So I'll try to make that clear as I move through. Starting in the morning, we can be a little bit flexible in our morning. My husband also works from home, so we don't have to be anywhere at a specific time. However, I do like to get started. I don't want to start too late because otherwise we won't fit what we need to fit in, and I get tired later in the day, so it's much easier for me personally to focus in the morning. So the goal is by 8:30 in the morning to have everybody dressed and have breakfast. My husband does make breakfast for our family, which is great. It's one less meal I have to cook, and it gives me a little bit of time to do whatever I need to do in the morning. I am still working on a morning routine for me to try to fit in some especially health goals, so we might come back to that at a later date. At or around 8:30 though, my 2 older kids, the 5th and 3rd graders, should be starting their individual school subjects. Now, I have a notebook for each of them, and I will write down what their individual school subjects for that day are, including if, like for their math books, for example, what pages they're supposed to do that day. So they just need to look at that. Often my son will start with his piano. My daughter, they each have a thing they like to start with in the morning. And I do note, I put a little asterisk usually next to subjects where they will need some help. And sometimes my husband can help out. Like, he's usually around to help with math if they need it. And he sometimes does spelling with my 5th grader. But certain things like logic of English I'll need to do with my 3rd grader. So he'll just need to wait until I'm ready to do that with him. And I have him do his subjects that he can do on his own first. He also does often read to his father, so that I'm doing other things. Okay, so the little 2, the 4 and the 2-year-old, we're gonna start this year with circle time. So the older 2 will be doing their individual school. Now, one issue I'm going to have is piano, so I may actually have them wait on piano practice until we're done with circle time. I have to work that out this year. But we're going to start with circle time and some reading in the morning. That way I have them first thing in the morning and we can set the tone for our preschool day. I am then going to work with each of the younger 2. So my thought is that I can set them up at the table with the older children. Often we do individual school at the kitchen table. And so I will take one, and my plan is actually to take the 4-year-old first, because I feel like if she gets involved in something at the table, and then it'll be harder to like pull her away from it. So I'm going to take her first, set the 2-year-old up with an activity at the table. Hopefully his father can help keep an eye on him so I can work with my 4-year-old. And this should be like 20 to 30 minutes depending on her attention. And it could be less depending on her attention span that day. But I really want to do some letter activities, a lot of fun with that this year. And then we have other Montessori things. We're going to be doing the number sequence and such. So I'm really excited to do that. So that's going to be our time to do those activities and presentations. And then I will set her up with something at the table, and I'm I'm trying to make sure I have a bunch of things to occupy them during this time so that I can work with then the 2-year-old, and this will probably only be like 10 minutes or so of just a few activities and some time for us to connect. After I'm done with that, I will move on to help my 3rd grader with his work. So usually logic of English, and if he has anything else he needs help with. And then I'm available to help my oldest if she needs me for something. I also want to note that when I'm done working with my 4 and 2-year-old and have them sit up at the table, one of the things I might do is give them a snack, and anybody else, if the older kids want a snack too. They just like to eat all the time, and it keeps them occupied and happy. So that will probably be something we're doing at that time as well. So that's the plan for our early morning time. I tried to think through how long it would take me to work with each of the children and give some time, some flexibility in there for transitions and such. And it feels like it should be doable to get all that done by 11 a.m. Might be 11:30 on some days, especially if we have logic of English, sometimes can take longer. So my goal is sometime between 11 and 11:30 be done with that. So the goal around 11:30 is to be doing some family subjects. These are not the big family subjects like history and science. We'll come back to that later. But these are things like map drill and other geography, artist, composer, or Shakespeare. So these are mostly aimed at the older 2. So the younger 2 can either play or they can join us. If we're doing nature study or art, they will be joining us. So I do have kind of an outline of what subjects I want to cover on each of the weekdays at this family school time. So I will share that with you, and I'm looking at my notes, so I keep looking down. So Monday, we'll start with map drill for geography, not full geography, just the map drill itself, which I have a video on. So I'll just link that here so you can check it out more. We are doing the Americas, both North and South. Then the Your Business math curriculum. Then whatever our family book is for Read Aloud. We'll end with that. Then on Tuesday, also starting with map drill. And then most weeks it'll be nature journaling, some weeks maybe art, then Read Aloud. Wednesday, also starting with map drill, and then this day is set aside for more geography activities as well. So I will have some extra books. We will be doing like learning about Frida Kahlo at some point. So there's different things involved there. So extra geography and then Read Aloud. Then Thursday is either our artist, composer, or Shakespeare. I will be rotating, so we will only be doing one of those at a given time. For a couple weeks, and then we'll switch. So map drill, then artist, composer, Shakespeare, then Read Aloud again. And then Friday, I left a little bit more open. I've noted for like a preschool activity or extra art, because I do have some like preschool activities. A lot of them are like more art activities, and I want to make sure I had a time for those. So I think most of them I can also incorporate the older 2 if they want to, but they probably won't be required to. So that's where we are on that. So yeah, Friday a little bit more free in general, or if we need to catch up on something. Then it's finally time for a lunch break. I am trying to do, as far as routines, I also try to have different lunch ideas for different days of the week, because just the decision fatigue on making everybody lunch is a little stressful. One of the hardest parts of homeschooling for me is the constant feeding of everybody. We're home, so they just like want to eat constantly. So I'm still kind of solidifying this, and if it's something you'd like me to share more on how I'm doing my lunch routine, you can let me know in the comments below. Because we have one table that we generally use for school and for lunch, my kids, I've decided that during the week chores for my older 2 children this year are just helping me to clear and reset the table for each thing that we do. So while I'm working on making lunch, they should be helping clear the table from any school supplies that are still on it, and resetting for lunch. We often put out placemats, just to help keep the table a little bit cleaner. And then after lunch, they're also going to help me clear that. And at that point of the day, I will also probably have them alternate the responsibility for either sweeping or vacuuming under the table, because it gets quite messy. So basically that's lunch and chores together. After that is nap or quiet time. So the 2-year-old right now still naps. Knock on wood, he will continue for a little bit. So I put him down for a nap. And then everybody else can have quiet playtime. That's We are working on this with the 4-year-old. It's a little bit tricky because she likes to come in and then she either keeps him awake or wakes him back up, and that's obviously not helpful. So yeah, I'm working on having some activities for her. Sometimes I do ask the older two if they could just play with her for a little bit, at least until I get him asleep. So sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, and they're just butting heads too much, but we're working on this. The idea is it's quiet time, and the idea here is that also this is when I get a break during the day. Now, there's tons of stuff I could be doing. There's just, I'm a homeschooler, I do YouTube videos, I garden, and I have lots of hobbies. I'm never bored. What I decided is that I'm not going to schedule something into this time. I really do need a time during the day where I take a break from my mental health. So it might be that I do go do a little bit of gardening or a craft or whatever, or work on a video, but it's basically the idea is what do I feel like doing? What will recharge me in that time? And I don't have a super long time to do it, but hopefully we can work on getting my 4-year-old settled to a quiet time activity so that I can have that break. And again, this is not on a firm time schedule, but my idea is that if we do family school starting at 11 or 11:30, it should take half an hour to an hour. I'm hoping we can fit all that in, because a lot of those subjects, they're pretty fast. They shouldn't take super long. So then by 12:30, we're starting lunch, and by 1:30, we're doing quiet time. So that's the goal. I also should mention, hopefully this won't happen often, but if my older two have not finished their individual subjects in the morning, now they have like 2.5 hours to finish them, which should be plenty of time. But if for some reason they get distracted or something's just really difficult, they would then finish it during that time. After nap, quiet time break is outsider movement time. So the touch point I'm thinking of is hopefully we will be doing this by 3 p.m. So we're getting well into the afternoon at this point. And the goal would be to do about an hour outside. There may be days where it becomes more or less depending on what else is going on. We also, of course, have days where we do some stuff outside the house. So on those days, this afternoon stuff will all get shifted. And in the past, we've done piano on Tuesdays. I think that'll still be the case. So that's what I'm going on here. But I am adding horseback for my daughter. So we'll have to rework some of this, especially afternoon schedule around that as well, most likely. Outside time and or movement. So if it's really crummy outside, we'll do some yoga together or set up something fun to do, hopefully that gets us moving a little bit. And then when we finish that, we do snack. So again, my kids are eating all the time. I'm trying, especially with the 4-year-old, to have her do like a set snack time where she eats a good amount. And I think it'd be good for all of us to have a snack before we start the next portion of the day. So that's the plan there. And then starting around 4 is what I'm calling our afternoon block. Now for me, this is a little late in the day, but my husband does work pretty late. He's kind of on a shifted schedule because he is in a different time zone than a lot of his coworkers. So I'm just embracing that we're just doing some of this stuff later and we're going with it. So starting around 4, this is our afternoon block, and several days a week, this will be school, and several days a week, I have this set aside as work time for me, so that I can have some time to work on these videos or get some work done in the garden. I need to have some time set aside for that. Some weeks maybe more or less, depending on what's going on. And I do have an idea of what I want to do per day, which again could shift, but Monday, science. Tuesday, we've been doing piano, and I actually bring my computer, my laptop with me, and the little two stay home with my husband. He just kind of leaves his office door open and keeps an eye on them in the playroom while we go to piano. So that's kind of my work time as well. So I have that set aside as a work day for me. Wednesday is history. Thursday is another work day, and then Friday is flexible. So it could be work, cleaning, free time, catching up on another subject. And I think I mentioned in both my science and history videos that I have like lesson lists. So if we can't get to one of those during the week, I just move on to the next lesson the next week. And there will probably be some weeks we do science twice. And so that second day will either be substituted instead of history, or I'll take out one of my work days. So that's how I'm thinking of that working. And that does get us all of our subjects in. During this afternoon time, whether it's like science or history or I'm working, I will have some things to occupy the 4 and 2-year-old. My hope is that most days they can just play. I want to give them lots of time for free play. They have lots of toys and other things they can do, so I'll have to be checking on them as we go. But I also have Preschool Prodigies music and Little Pim French, which are both video things that I can get set up for them while I'm either working or doing school with the older two. And sometimes I do incorporate them in our school time as well. So they'll just kind of be around, and it'll depend on the day. And so this should take 1 to 2 hours, preferably just one, but later in the day, and depending on what it is, giving myself some flexibility there. So we should be done at 6 at the latest, at which point it is time for me to make dinner and to do a home reset. That's what I'm calling a pickup at the end of the day. Basically just having the kids pick up, especially on like in the main rooms. But again, the table will probably need to be picked up from school stuff again. Make sure all of their school supplies and materials are put away nicely so we can find them the next morning, pick up any toys and stuff in the living room and the playroom, and do quick pickups of their rooms as well. And then is dinner, family time, playtime, and bedtime routine. And we do bedtime a little bit later because again, we've kind of shifted and the kids don't have to get up super early. So we do the bedtime for the 4 and 2-year-old right now around 8 o'clock. And then the older two get to stay up a little bit later. Usually the 3rd grader's in bed by 9, and the 10-year-old, my 5th grader, is actually in charge of her own bedtime. She has never been one to go to sleep when I tell her to, and she is pretty reliably out by 10:30, and so we've just been letting her do her own bedtime. She, I think, just needs less sleep than I do, at least, and then some of the rest of us do. So she's generally out by 10:30, and then she gets up on her own in the morning. She's not groggy or anything, so I'm just not worrying about it. As long as she's quiet in her bedroom by 9, I'm just fine with her being in charge of that. You might have noticed, and as I've been going over this routine, I don't have a lot of time for cleaning in here. I don't love to clean, so we're gonna try doing a weekly family cleaning session on the weekends, and I'm working on making like a master list for that, just so the house stays tolerably clean. It's not my favorite thing to do. When people ask like, how do you do it all? That's the first thing that usually drops off is cleaning my house. So, you know, hopefully that makes you feel a little bit better because we can't all do it all. I hope that was helpful and made sense. This is not something that I'm starting completely from scratch. Several of these we've been doing for a while, like starting the morning with individual school for my older two, our nap time, quiet time we've been working on for a little while. So this isn't starting like just a whole new routine from scratch. And I have been starting in August with making sure we're hitting some of the touch points for things. So we haven't been doing school, but I've been trying to make sure that we're up and have had breakfast before 8:30, that we're taking lunch around 12:30, and that we're doing our nap time, quiet time, and such. So yeah, I've been trying to make sure that we're starting to get to those touch points, and dinner time and bedtime is generally what it is. So now I have some more planning and prep work that I need to do for our school year. I hope you are all having a wonderful summer, or if you've already started back to school, that it is going well. As of recording this, my plan is for us to start next week. So exciting times, and I will share with you as we go. Until then, I hope you all stay healthy and safe and well. Bye, friends.